So you've made it to the end of the systematic instruction training. We're going to focus now on follow along, supports, retention, things that you need to have in place to make sure that the person that you're supporting is as independent as possible. So learning objectives for today, you will understand the value and preparation for long-term supports. You'll be able to consider how to set expectations not only for your customer, but also for yourself and for the business that you're supporting. And finally, you're gonna leave with a variety of tools that will help you set up your supports to be as independent as possible. So what is a job coach? If you do a Google image search, what comes up when you look for job coach? And what comes up when you look for employment consultant? What do you see? How you show up really matters. The most effective job coaches are able to match who they are to the surroundings that they're in. And so for many of you, that means that you're gonna have like 5 different outfits in the back of your car, because you might be working at a horse farm in the morning, you might be going to a factory at lunchtime, and you might end your day at a lawyer's office. So you need to be ready for that, and you need to be ready to really put yourself out there in a way that best represents the person that you're supporting. You know, the people that we are helping to find jobs and make connections in the community sometimes have so much working against them. I think it's really important that as supports, we show up in a way that really does, show the person in the best light. What is a job coach? Are you a teacher? Are you a helper? The distinction is not always clear, but I want you to remember that a job coach is a teacher. Your job is to help somebody get that job. It's not your job, it's their job. So that means that it's not your responsibility to do their work. Now, it might be your responsibility to help augment the training of an employer. It might be your responsibility to help set up the tools that somebody needs to be independent. But if you find yourself doing even a small part of that person's job, you need to make that subtle switch from being a helper to a teacher. The rest of this section is going to be broken out into different strategies that you can use to help your learner be as independent as possible. At the end of this section, you'll have the opportunity to deep dive into a tool of your choice. A really important skill set in being the best employment consultant you can be is the ability to research and see what other people out in the field are doing in situations that are similar to yours. So a big component of this homework assignment is going to be looking at what other people have done around these different tools. We'll give you a couple resources to start, but a lot of this is going to rest on your ability to do some research on your own. The first strategy we're going to talk about is regular and clear communication. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been in this situation where I've provided long-term support with somebody, and it kind of turned into this sort of check-in basis. Maybe I would call on the phone, maybe I'd go into the business, and everything's fine. You talk to the manager, everything's fine. You talk to your customer, everything's fine. You talk to the coworkers, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden the person is fired. We call this fine, fire. And this could have been avoided in my case with just a little bit of regular and clear communication. Now, this sometimes happens because the person that I'm supporting maybe is not meeting job expectations. It could be sometimes when the management changes, and if the job coach, employment consultant isn't in there educating the new manager about what is going on in the support employment setup. There's a lot of different reasons this could happen, but just having a simple plan in place of how to have that communication and how to set those expectations goes a long way in preventing that type of situation. So when we think about expectations, there's 3 areas you want to think about. Your role as support, the person that you're supporting, and the employer. So in terms of your role as a support, it's really helpful when setting expectations that you talk to the manager and you explain that you are not a supervisor. You are not taking the place of the manager in that situation. Your role is to help augment the training, to help make their training a better fit for the learner because you know that learner's needs. In the case of onboarding, it's super helpful if you just let the employer do what they normally do with new hire training, and then you take that training alongside the person and help make it a better fit for the person that you're working with. Next, you want to think about your expectations for the customer. So when we talk about support employment, we're talking about real jobs. We're talking about jobs that create real value for the business and real value for the community. Charity jobs don't work. So jobs where you set up where it makes people feel good that somebody, is working, but they're not actually providing value or adding anything to the business, is a situation that is 100% of the time destined for failure eventually. Because what ends up happening is the person who originally set that up leaves, or higher up comes and sees the situation, and we haven't done our jobs to make sure that the value is built around that job. And then third, you want to think about the employer. So having that conversation with the employer that the expectation is that they are employing your customer, that the relationship is between your customer and that employer, and that you're there as a support person who knows this, knows your customer pretty well, knows learning styles, knows communication styles, and you can help bridge any sort of gap that may or may not exist between coworkers, between managers and that person. But setting the expectation early on that that relationship needs to exist is key to setting up this expectation of regular and clear communication. Let's default to support systems. So when I say support system, what am I talking about? The technical definition of a support system is a formal or informal tool or set of tools that helps an individual accomplish something by themselves that they would otherwise need support, or it lets them do something more efficiently or independently than they would otherwise. Think about it. Most of us are highly supported. I'm reading off a phone right now. I'm being recorded by a phone. I am constantly supported in my life. What supports are you setting up so the person that you're supporting is as independent as possible? So remember, we're teachers, not helpers. We're thinking about support systems. Often the first place that we start is ourselves. What is it that I'm doing in my support role that makes it necessary for me to be here for the person that I'm supporting to accomplish the thing that we're trying to do? So the easiest way to think about this is the broken record test. Is there a situation where you feel like a broken record? What I mean by that is if you know that every single day at a certain time you have to say something, point at something, do something, and it's reliable, you're a broken record, and you could be replaced really easily with some sort of support system that allows that person to interact with the environment to get that same support needs met that you're offering them. Let me tell you a story. A couple years ago, I met a young woman who had been volunteering at a charity that made sandwiches for seniors and low-income people. She had spent 10 years working in a sheltered workshop production facility. And after the shop closed, this was all her employment agency had found for her in the last 2 years. She needed a lot of help making sandwiches. So she had a one-to-one aide who was helping her finish her work. This aide had worked with her both in high school, in the shop, and now at the volunteer job for the past 2 years. So she worked 4 hours a week. They say she never called out sick, and they also say that she even worked on holidays. That means that she and her aide worked 384 hours making sandwiches. Her employment agency billed $55 for each hour of one-to-one service. That means her funding sources paid $19,200 over those 2 years to help her volunteer making sandwiches. There was a grant opportunity that the Women's Employment Agency took advantage of to help secure long-term individualized support employment jobs for people who had spent time in workshops. The new job coach was tasked with finding a paid job for the woman. However, job placements requiring a one-on-one job coach were not accepted. So how does she solve a $19,200 problem? It just so happened that the new job coach had worked with this woman years ago in a residential setting. She knew there had to be a way to support more independence, but she didn't exactly know what it would be. The job coach's first step was to take a video of her customer being supported to make sandwiches. This took about 2 hours to video record and watch a few times. She recognized, only after watching this video a few times, that the one-on-one aide was helping her sequence the steps. Without the aide, she would miss steps. With the aide's support in sequencing the steps, she was mostly independent. Her next step was to visit the woman at home and get a better idea of her interests, as well as any strategies that her home supports used to keep her successful. It was the same house that she had worked at years before, and as soon as she walked in, she saw the pictures taped to the walls and furniture that described and promoted sequence for a variety of activities, getting ready to go out, cleaning up dishes, and nighttime bed routines. This took about an hour. The coach took all these ideas and thoughts and built out a picture task list for making sandwiches that resembled the ones used at home. This also took about an hour. The coach then took the tool to the volunteer site, made a few changes to it after she tried to teach how to use it the first time, and made a final version. By the end of the week, the woman finished the sandwiches by herself. This step took 3 hours. At the end of the story, the job coach took 7 hours, which equated to about $350 worth of funding to solve a $19,200 problem. Strategy number 3, visualize communication, accommodations, and instructions. Most humans, but not all, respond well to visuals. Corporate America has already figured this out. Next time you're in line for Starbucks or headed to fast food, peek behind the counter and look at how all the instructions are built with visuals. One of the first jobs that I ever helped somebody get was at a Boeing subcontractor where they built the roof panels of the Dreamliner. And I thought I was going to go in there and task analyze all these jobs, teach Boeing how to build an airplane. They had it all figured out. There were 3 languages spoken on the floor: Ukrainian, Russian, Spanish, English, so 4 languages spoken on the floor. And they had all the steps broken down into pictures. So corporate America is ahead of us in this aspect. So unless you know that this method of breaking things down, breaking steps down into visuals doesn't work for your customer, you should always default to visual communication because it's the most universal type of support that we can build. Universal meaning that your customer is going to understand it as well as coworkers and the employer.
Consider what's on your screen. Yeah, it's the word goldfish, but for our purposes, we're going to call it unexpected textual information. Scientists have shown that it can take up to 9 seconds for our brain to process unexpected textual information. 0.15 seconds. That's how long it takes from the moment light hits your eyes to start seeing basic object identity in your brain. It can take 9 seconds to process unexpected text. That means we process pictures up to 60,000 times faster than text. 12 seconds? Well, that's the American attention span in the year 2000. 8 seconds? That's our attention span in the year 2016. 9 seconds? Well, that's the attention span of the goldfish. Do you see the problem here? We're not just talking about people with disabilities. Most people are better supported with visuals. Here's another example. A curved line with every point equal distance from the center. And here's a graphic description.
Strategy number 4, a primary focus is always communication. In 1985, there was a groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis that showed for the first time that you can take what's commonly considered problem behavior, figure out what the point of it was for the person performing that behavior, teach an easier way to get to whatever the thing they were trying to get to, and that problem behavior reduces.
Hold on. What early researchers and some current practitioners sometimes fail at is differentiating our services from trying to normalize someone's actions or presence in the world versus helping them get access to activities and environments that they want access to. You and I both work with adults, which means that our customers, clients, whatever word you prefer, have a right to decide if they want your service. and they have choice in where they want to go and what they do. You may not use the tools we present here to coerce someone into doing something that does not meet their own goals. You must instead use these strategies to help someone live the life that they want to live.
So what does that mean? It means that behavior is always about communication. And it's either communication with you as the other person that's in that equation, or it's communication with the environment that's around that person. That means that when we're addressing some problematic stuff that might show up at work, your first thing to think about is, what is this person trying to communicate? And there's some tools such as a functional analysis that you can use to break down really quickly and ethically what is happening and why that person is doing the thing that is not quite working in the workplace. But your goal is to create a tool, an accommodation that helps your customer communicate his or her needs and wants to the environment around them.
You are so close to the end of this course. A few last points to help you on your journey of supporting other people. First, remember that if you and others have done your jobs right, in most cases, you are just one person around that person you support. Make sure that as you develop accommodations, communication tools, and other supports, that you involve the coworkers and other people in your customer's life in implementation. Sometimes support staff worry about engaging these other people, who we call natural supports, because they're afraid. Remember, having other people support is totally natural. Just think about how many people you interacted with who helped you out in some way over the past week. In the same theme as setting up natural supports, you should also strive not to make yourself a necessary part of the support system. Often, this starts by working with your customers' unique travel and transportation options in developing community jobs so that you're not stuck providing transportation. That is not sustainable. And finally, if you see a potential problem or conflict on the horizon, don't wait for it to show up. Anticipate it. Accommodate to it. This takes honesty, humility, and good relationships with the person you're supporting and others who are in that person's life. Are family members worried about Social Security? Work with the person's case manager to secure benefits planning. Is the person nervous about meeting new people? Help them access calming strategies and tools that can help them remember new coworkers' names. I'm sure that you will do great things, as long as you stay curious and open to new ideas. So, for your homework, we want you to take an idea, any idea from this course that involves supporting someone, and dig deeper into it. You could think about task analysis, task design, smartphone task and note-taking applications, social stories, visual supports, a lot of other things. Do some research, look on the internet, and look in your own networks to see what other people have done with your topic. Then, follow the questions on the homework description to come up with a tip sheet that you will share with your classmates on how to implement the tool. Finally, make either a real or mocked up version of the tool. Make a video, take a picture, or write about what you did. That's it. Have fun out there.